I think there's a chance we could get there quick. I think you're already seeing one of the things that I had was going to talk about on the show, and I think we're going to hold it for another time. But just
Oh,
briefly,
definitely harbingers.
oh yeah, no, to just briefly bring it up because it kind of fits into this subject matter is you had this pastor of this church in Tampa who held a church service that was well over 10 people, which is what the stay-at-home order was 10 people. Um, he got arrested, charged with a second-degree misdemeanor with a $500 fine, posted his bond, went home and whatnot. The Florida governor DeSantis, he came out and tweaked his statewide order a little bit to say that churches,
Or essential
not
business.
churches, but religious services, and I don't have the exact quote because I decided to hold it for another show. But anyway, basically saying that was an essential activity.
He actually called it an essential business,
Yes.
which bugs me because if that's the case, you got to start taxing church. But separation of church and state, I get it. And I kind of think that might be where you're going with it.
Well, where I was going is it's a slippery slope. To me, that's a First Amendment issue. It also gets back to our last live stream where we were talking about freedom, balancing that with personal responsibility. I totally 100% and full disclosure, I used to be an associate pastor and a youth pastor, went to Bible college before before MBA in finance and all that. So I have a background in that. I'm absolutely 100% against them having held that church service there. 99% of churches in America are using live streams and Facebook, and people are staying home and they're continuing to do. That's the smart, personal, responsible thing to do. So I disagree with his decision to say no, just to be, I'm going to break that rule just because I can. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. However, the other side to that is that's a First Amendment Bill of Rights, natural law right that we have in America. And there's three things in that First Amendment, and it's freedom to express your religion as you want without the government interfering with it, the right to assemble, and the right to free speech.
All three of those are crippled right there.
Those are three precious rights that we've held in this country that have distinguished us from everybody else. And it's always going to start small, and it's interesting to me that it started on the local level. It was the local level that made the decision to arrest him, and what I think there are other ways they could have dealt with it, but they did. They've gotten mad at the governor and said that he's politicizing it. He's not politicizing the First Amendment. He's saying, I don't think you guys should be doing this, but I don't know that we have a constitutional right to stop you. So it's the local area there who is just, who made it an issue, but it starts small. And while you may not be a Christian, you may not go to church, you have to be very careful about protecting other people's rights, whether you agree with them or not, because sooner or later it's coming for you.
Definitely.
And there was a great quote on that by a Lutheran pastor in Germany, that basically said, hey, they came for this and I didn't speak up. They came for these people and I didn't speak up. They came for these people and I didn't speak up. Then they finally came for me and there was nobody left to speak up. I think we're going to start to see an erosion to our rights into things. I don't think it's going to be an overnight martial law thing. I think it's going to be little pieces here, this part of the country, this city, this town, this state, just like the lockdowns were. They started in one little place here, then it was here, then it's going to be the same kind of thing. And, like I said, we want freedom, but with that comes personal responsibility.
To protect your freedom.
And, as people of faith, our number one responsibility is to look out for our neighbors, to look out for others. And that was a dumb decision that I don't support at all. But for the government to arrest you for doing that, I think there are other ways you could deal with that. And it makes me really nervous because even though I disagree with what they did, I have to say I agree with their right to do it, even though I
Right.
think it's totally stupid. I think it was dangerous. But man, that's a fine line. And the fact that people are angry about the fact that they couldn't restrict their religious expression worries me. Because right along with that comes your right to assemble, martial law,
Right to
your right
press.
to, they shut down streams, they censor you and shut you down off YouTube because we're saying something about the government they don't like. Hey, we're telling you the truth about the virus, so cut them off. And it's the churches, whether you like them or not, in the history of our country, they've been one of the strongest voices against government, warning about certain things. They've had that freedom to express that, and when you cut that off, that's some of our defense mechanism is gone.
Definitely.
Not on a religious side, but on a civil side,
Right.
they've been, whether it was a civil rights movement or whatever, they had a pulpit to speak from, to stand against government, to stand against people trying to do things. That's going to be a target for the government. It always has been. The government's like a fire. It just consumes things, and the first thing it consumes is what it deems to be its biggest threat. And religion,
Religious
it's not just,
establishments will be.
yeah, and it's not just Christianity. It's all the religions, and because they've had that freedom to stand opposed to government and to
Exactly.
stand against
Because they're
politics
protected.
because they're protected. And that's when it's concerning to me to see that move starting to happen to restrict that. And it's isolated. The first time it was in one county
And it
in
was in
Tampa.
Florida, so does that? I mean, you got to be careful. Basing anything on what happens in
What
Florida.
happens
Florida's
in Florida?
crazy.
Yeah, we've already seen Florida, but it's concerning, and I think people need to start being on guard and watching that and being prepared for that, because
definitely agree.
it's one of those things where whenever you're trying to make a change, you don't want to make a big change. You ratchet it up little by little so that you take one step and it becomes normal for people. Then you take another step, and it's sort of like the frog in the boiling water. You
Right.
put it in and you turn.
Slowly crank that water up
Exactly.
to boil us, right?
And you lose. We see things that move, like when you're playing video games, our vision's set up to see something moving against the background. When you don't have that sense of something's moving or changing, you kind of you don't
So what you're saying is
you become comfortably numb to it, and then
If
you
you
wake up
wanna-
all of a sudden you've lost a major freedom.
if you really want to understand the world, you have to play video.
Yes, so much comes back to video games, man.
I mean, it is
with that. At the local level though, and state level, again, my concern is there's been a balance there, but there's been kind of law and order. You could only go so far. But as this deepens and you lose some of that structure in society, I think the greatest threat to us individually is at a local level, with some crazy person in power kind of going off the reservation. And I think that's where you're going to start to see that
so
at
for
the
instance,
grassroots level going up, because look, my congressman, senator, or whatever, they have very little impact over my life. The sheriff has a whole lot of impact. The police chief has a whole lot of impact. The mayor has a whole lot of impact over my life.
So let's keep it local. We live in I operate out of Wake County, North Carolina. So stuff that happens in Wake County holds a lot of gravity over my life. It controls a lot of
Absolutely.
aspects to my life, right? Just this past week, I don't know if you keep up with Wake County local news very closely with everything going on. It's gotta be hard. I think it was Wednesday. Wake County demanded, or they passed, I guess the mayor, whatever, who controls the county? What could, is it a board? Is it?
Yeah, it's a board, I think. It's like a
think it was
county
the-
board, and
think
it's like
it
a
was the-
chairman of the board.
It was
It's like
the
the
mayor of
chairman of the
Raleigh, I
board.
want to say, or somebody from one of these cities passed an executive order saying that gun stores are no longer essential. So they demanded gun stores be shuttered up. Then all the pawn shops were like, well, we're not going to close because we're a pawn shop, and we loan money. And one of your exclusions from the clause is places that give loans have to remain open. So that's how they got around it. But there's like a lot of gun stores like in multiple cities that got shut down, like in multiple towns in Wake County. And I think it was only a day, and they reversed the decision. But the problem is that targeting an area like a gun store, the places that you can use, you can say, well, you can just buy a gun online. You have to have a federal
still have to have the
license
gun store.
transfer, and only certain places are allowed to do that, and most of
A
them they're
gun
gun
store.
stores. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could do a big box store, but they're all shut down right now. So
And I mean, Walmart won't do it for you anymore,
this, yeah, right,
depending upon what you get.
right, and this was a local, just this past week thing that happened. That was kind of a big deal. You know, it was kind of like a wake up call to me. I was just looking through the news and I read they want to shut down gun stores. Now, the average person might read that and be like, whatever, I don't give a shit. Guns are cool. I don't like them. I don't have them. I don't, whatever. There's this weird mindset with guns. You either love them or hate them. There's not usually an in between. Like, you know what I mean? And I used to work in a pawn shop.
It's a hot button issue.
Right. And I used to work in a pawn shop and I saw both sides of it every single day. And it looked like there was never any just level headed people about it. It was either you were, you know, a gun toting American that was proud to express your Second Amendment right, or you hated guns.
Yeah, and you're a nutcase.
Yeah, and there's pretty much the two sides of it. Now I'm sure there are people out there that are in the gray, but you don't see it often. It's the whole point. So I'm sure a lot of people that read that might have been thinking, whatever, it's just a news story. You know, just kept on scrolling through it. But that really, really scared me because that is local. That will affect me as a person. What if I wanted more ammo? What if I wanted to go buy another gun to protect my house? What if I needed something from that store? And you're letting, you know, hardware stores, letting small grocery stores, you're letting all the gas stations, you're letting fast food stay open. Why would you close down a gun store? I mean, that is a direct target at your Second Amendment.
Yeah,
to me, that's what I see it as. It might not be. It might just have been them trying to limit exposure or whatever they're saying, and whatever leader came up with this.
For the greater good, but that's my point. Your idea of the greater good may or may not be the greater good. And the two things that I take from that are, one, it's like I said, it's a bottom-up thing because Wake County does that. Suppose they hadn't changed it back. Well, then Mecklenburg County and Charlotte is going to feel like, well, we should do that.
That was the thing, is they already said that Durham County, they were set to follow suit.
And it spreads.
Yep.
The second thing I take away from that is it's exactly the same thing as the church. You may not like guns. You may not like church. Maybe you're a church person, you don't like guns. You're a gun person, you don't like church. But you have to defend each other's rights to things. Definitely. Because they will nibble and take away a little at a time and a little at a time, and they're going to come for the rights that are important to you at some point. So you have to be willing to stand up and defend other people's rights, even if it's not something you feel is important or it's not something you necessarily agree with. It, you know, locally, we as a people have to defend that and stand that ground, because I'm becoming more and more convinced it's not going to be federally driven.
That will be like the final nail in the coffin.
And if you're the federal government and this is a conspiracy theory and that is your idea to do, what in the world would you want more than for this to bubble up from the ground up and give you all the cover you need to say, well, everybody's already done it anyway, so this is what we're doing?